For a brochure on career training in electronics, call 1-800-722-7337. 1-800-722-7337. Call now.
You're watching Channel 5.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Sitting in tonight, Forrest, Sawyer.
Good evening. Yet another indication tonight of a faltering economy. The government's chief forecasting gauge, the index of leading economic indicators, is down 0.2% in June. That is the first drop in 6 months. One economist said that means the U.S. is in for more of the same, a lackluster, limp, lethargic economic performance, which means little hope of a strong upturn by November's election. Bad news for President Bush, who's been saying things aren't as bad as they seem. Stephen Ogg reports consumers appear to have a different idea.
The Madigan family began selling clothing in Chicago in 1881. Until last February, they had 10 stores. Only 5 remain now, and those are going to close as well. 1,100 employees will lose their jobs.
Very heartbroken by a lot of people, especially the ones that have been here for a while. You know, we feel real bad. It was a nice place to work for.
Customers are depressed as well.
I don't know. It scares me. That's all I can say. A beautiful store like this have to close down. I can't figure it out.
The way economists figure it out, though, what's been hurting Madigan's is the same phenomenon that's been hurting businesses across the country: lack of consumer confidence. Many consumers are worried about job security. Many others have taken pay cuts or had only small raises. Falling confidence is just one of the government indicators that went down last month. Others included a shorter work week for manufacturing workers, an increase in claims for unemployment insurance, and fewer building permits.
Business is not confident, so it's not spending. State and local governments are cutting spending. Our exports are falling off because our trading partners are in recession.
On Wall Street, the economic weakness helped send stocks down. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed at 3384.32, down 11 points. Volume was active. A one-month drop in the leading indicators does not make a trend, but its movement over the past 4 months shows a sluggish economy in which no sector appears strong enough to give it the kind of boost it really needs. Stephen Ogg, ABC News, Washington.
President Bush tried to sound a positive note about the economy in an interview with reporters from USA Today. Mr. Bush said the U.S. has been in tough economic times, but it is poised for an outstanding recovery. On Capitol Hill today, the president tried to get his own political recovery going. Here's ABC's Britt Hume.
At what amounted to a pep rally with Senate Republicans, the president was spared the buzzsaw of criticism that one of his top campaign aides had received from worried House Republicans last week. Today, the talk was all about how united they are and how hard they'll fight starting at their convention.
When Republican senators are at the Republican convention, people are going to be able to see them. They're not going to be hidden in the basement.
That, of course, a reference to the minor role congressional Democrats played at their convention. In a videotaped interview with newspaper reporters, the president also insisted that his critics to the contrary, he is not a candidate in search of a reason for running.
There's an unfulfilled agenda, and it would move this country forward to much happier days. And so that's the message that I'll get out there.
Part of his agenda was under severe attack from congressional Democrats today, though. Answering the Bush criticism of the Clinton health care plan, they said Mr. Bush doesn't even have one.
His health care program is non-existent, and it combines the compassion of his anti-recession policy with the efficiency of his S&L bailout.
The White House countered with 2 aides who said, oh, yes, the president does have a plan, and it's more complete, they said, than the Clinton plan.
3 pages does not constitute a plan. We have heard for 3 days now, this administration doesn't have a plan. We have a plan. Governor Clinton does not have a plan.
In fact, both candidates have advanced health care proposals. Neither side obviously thinks much of the other's ideas. Today's exchange might be a preview of what 4 more years of divided government would sound like. Britt Hume, ABC News, the White House.
In a moment, desperation in Sarajevo. Humanitarian flights are halted. On the American agenda, the Vice President's Council on Competitiveness, the cost of cutting red tape, and the Olympic decathlon, and an athlete with a lot of confidence.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings, brought to you by Mylanta and Asset.
I was really downing those tablets. Come on. gone. They're not candy. I started to think there was something really wrong with my stomach. Was I relieved when my doctor told me to try a new antacid tablet.
Introducing Mylanta tablets, shown to neutralize more stomach acid than the leading tablet.
Unbelievable.
New Mylanta tablets.
My doctor said Mylanta.
The body design is indicative of the level of refinement throughout.
What strikes you is noise. There isn't any.
Optional V6 provides as much power as conventional V8.
Feels far more expensive than it is. Driver's side airbag is standard.
Bigger and better in every way. The Toyota Camry has received so many accolades, and now there's more room to accommodate them. Introducing the all-new 7-passenger Camry wagon. We just couldn't leave well enough alone.
In Sarajevo today, the shelling around the city's airport has become so intense, the United Nations has suspended relief flights for 3 days. There is a growing debate over whether more should be done to stop the war in what was Yugoslavia, especially in light of reports that Serbian fighters have begun rounding up and systematically killing civilians. Here's ABC's Barry Dunsmore.
While shelling continued today in Sarajevo, the news focused on reports of Nazi-like detention camps being run by Serbs. Witnesses told New York Newsday over the weekend about sealed boxcars carrying civilians to camps where they were tortured and murdered. Yesterday, State Department spokesman Richard Boucher said the U.S. knew from its own reports that such atrocities were taking place.
We've received continuing reports of abuses, torture, and killings.
But, said Boucher, the U.S. was planning no specific response. The apparent confirmation prompted editorials in major newspapers calling for action to stop atrocities reminiscent of the Nazi era. Perhaps the most significant reaction in this political year came from Democratic challenger Bill Clinton. If the horrors of the Holocaust taught us anything, it is the high cost of remaining silent and paralyzed in the face of genocide. Clinton called for an emergency session of the UN Security Council to demand access to all camps by the International Committee of the Red Cross, a demand, in his words, to be backed up by collective action, including the use of force if necessary. For its part, the Bush administration had a split reaction. On the one hand, it backed away from an outright confirmation of the Serbian concentration camps. On the other, it suddenly called for a Security Council meeting to demand access to the camps by the Red Cross. Also, late this afternoon, the U.S. announced it would seek a new Security Council resolution to protect the Bosnian relief effort by all necessary measures. That could mean the use of American ships and planes. Barry Dunsmore, ABC News, the State Department.
In Sarajevo this morning, another funeral and another moment of terror. This funeral was for one of 2 small children killed by sniper fire during the evacuation of children from the war zone. The ceremony ended abruptly. Here's ABC's Jim Bitterman.
The mother of Vedrana Glavas was burying her 3-year-old daughter this morning when her moment of grief suddenly turned into further tragedy. Without warning, mortars and then sniper fire rained down on the cemetery. A shot ricocheted just inches from Mrs. Glavas' feet, and not far away, mortar fire wounded her mother. Both Serbians and Bosnians blame each other for attacking the cemetery today, as they blame each other for the attack on Saturday, which left the little Serbian girl and a 1-year-old Muslim boy dead. Aid workers had been trying to take them out of Sarajevo by bus. 42 of the refugee children did finally arrive in Germany this morning. In addition to the 2 who were killed, 9 others in the original group were taken away by Serbian gunmen, who decided because their names sounded Serbian, they should stay. A United Nations official charges it was criminally negligent to evacuate people from Sarajevo in an unmarked, unescorted bus at a time when sniper fire can be at its heaviest. Some have accused the evacuation organizers of staging nothing more than a publicity stunt, which unnecessarily put the children's lives at risk. But again today, there was proof that staying in Sarajevo is so dangerous that those who manage to make it out are still better off than those who are left behind. Jim Bitterman, ABC News, Schönebeck, Germany.
Still overseas, nearly 2,000 Marines landed on Kuwaiti beaches today to begin military exercises with the Kuwaitis. Kuwait's defense minister says he hopes the exercises send a message to Saddam Hussein that they are ready. In a moment, an experiment in space gets off to a sticky start.
I'll get the cereal, honey.
Morning! You'll love this cereal.
Where'd you come from?
A different time when grains were kept whole for the natural hearty taste. New great grains, toasted wheat, oats, and barley, kept whole, full of flavor.
Pecans, dates, raisins.
Enjoy it with the missus.
Thanks.
Great. Where'd you get this?
Mind if I tell her?
What was great back then is great grains now. A great new cereal from Post.
Nighttime, one of the worst times for pain. Minor arthritis pain, muscle aches, pain that seems to go on. That's why you need Ultra Strength Bengay. With more pain relievers than we've ever had, you can say goodnight to your pain with Ultra Strength Bengay.
Whenever you pick up a little something, why not charge it on the Discover card and earn a cashback bonus? After all, money doesn't grow on trees. Or does it? It pays to Discover.
Doctor.
Is it right for me?
Habitrol. It's a patch.
You know the patch? Habitrol. You know, Habitrol.
It's a patch. Habitrol.
Habitrol.
Habitrol Nicotine Transdermal System. Available by prescription only.
Thank you, Doctor.
I tried to ignore my sensitive teeth, but they hurt.
Don't ignore your sensitive teeth. Sensodyne helps stop the pain that can make you stop brushing. Could lead even to tooth loss.
Thanks, Sensodyne.
Sensodyne helps stop the pain of sensitive teeth.
On the Space Shuttle Atlantis today, one of the most complex and riskiest experiments ever tried on a shuttle. The mission to release a satellite and fly it as if it were a kite on a very long cable, and then reel the satellite back in. It was rough going. Here's ABC's Jim Slade.
The satellite was at the end of a long boom above the shuttle's cargo bay, ready for launch. Then, a plug feeding computer messages to and from the satellite refused to pull loose. Finally, controllers told the astronauts to use the shuttle's steering jets to jerk the spacecraft downward and pull the plug.
We see it. It's a great sight.
But the troubles weren't over yet. When the astronauts finally tried to release the satellite, the cable wobbled enough to make them jam on the brakes. They pulled the satellite back to its cradle, checked it over, before trying again. Because of the delay, the satellite will reel out only to a distance of 6.5 miles rather than 12. But it's still expected to generate electricity while flying through Earth's magnetic field at 5 miles per second. Generating electricity that way might be used as auxiliary power for a space station or shuttle in the future. The entire operation is expected to last about 30 hours. It'll go very slowly because no one really knows how the cable will behave going out and coming back. If it begins to move too violently for the shuttle to control, the astronauts will cut the satellite loose and leave it behind. Jim Slade, ABC News, the Johnson Space Center, Houston.
There was a call for action today to help parents who can't collect their child support payments. After a 2-year study, the Federal Commission on Interstate Child Support says the existing system of collecting payments simply doesn't work. As ABC's Jim Hickey reports, millions of parents think an overhaul is long overdue.
Here's from the Attorney General's office in Houston asking me for another address. Here's more addresses.
For 8 years, Nancy Sissons of Long Island, New York, pursued a frustrating paper chase through the legal system to get her ex-husband, back in Texas, to pay the $90,000 in child support he owed their 2 daughters.
He had moved to Corpus Christi, so they told me I had to refile in a different county.
While she was battling the bureaucracy, Nancy worked 2 jobs to provide for her daughters. They are among millions of children who are owed an estimated $5 billion in support from non-paying parents.
You've heard the maxim, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Well, the child support system is broken.
The Child Support Commission's recommendations today are intended to overhaul that system to make it easier to locate parents who owe money and make them pay. The recommendations include creating a national computer network to track down delinquent parents, changing tax withholding forms so employees would have to indicate whether they have child support obligations. Payments would be deducted from their salaries. Freezing bank accounts, imposing property liens, or withholding driver's and business licenses from delinquent parents. Avoiding bureaucratic conflicts by keeping the authority in child support cases in only one state, usually where the child lives. The report is so controversial, not even all the commissioners support it. At least one says it places too much responsibility on the states instead of the federal government.
States have proven their inability to solve the child support crisis. They have failed to save children from poverty.
The new recommendations will be introduced in Congress this fall. However, they will be competing with other proposed legislation making child support a federal responsibility. But in this election year, Congress is unlikely to find the time to act on any of the proposals. Women like Nancy Sissons won't see the tangle of paperwork unravel anytime soon. Jim Hickey, ABC News, New York.
A judge in Jackson, Mississippi has ruled that the man accused of murdering civil rights leader Medgar Evers 29 years ago must stand trial. Byron de la Beckwith has claimed his health and memory are both so bad he couldn't endure another trial. He was tried twice before for the murders. Both trials ended with hung juries. We have a footnote to the Navy's tailhook scandal. The Las Vegas Hilton, where the Tailhook Association has held its annual conventions for 20 years, has now told the group it's no longer welcome. This follows reports that drunken Navy and Marine aviators at last year's Tailhook convention molested dozens of women in a hotel hallway. When we come back, the American agenda, how Vice President Quayle has put his stamp on the environment.
You've been dieting with a very special day in mind, which could mean you're not getting your daily amount of protein, because many foods that provide protein are also high in fat. But not this one, Kellogg's Special K, the only cereal that's fat-free and a good source of protein. So make Special K part of your future plans and get into that dress you've been dying to wear. Kellogg's Special K. Get the protein, lose the fat.
The new Jeep. The world's only 4x4 with a standard driver's side airbag.
In our universe, there was always the unknown, the unpredictable. All we can do is prepare for it.
AT&T is now installing Fast Start. It can detect a cable cut instantly, so 800 calls can get back in minutes instead of hours.
We can send flowers for any occasion, anywhere, but only if our 800 service is up and running. Our 800 service isn't just a phone line, it's a lifeline.
I miss you.
AT&T has the most reliable 800 service, period.
AT&T. Call us.
State finals coming up. A lot of pressure to win. I don't eat right, I get irregular, so I don't project a winning attitude, and the boys see that. I tried some natural bulk fiber, but I couldn't take all that grit. Then I discovered Sunrise Smooth Metamucil. No grit in the mix or the taste. Easy to get the extra fiber I need every day to stay regular. You got a winning attitude, you win, if you're lucky.
Metamucil, and you could stay regular for the rest of your life.
On the American agenda for the next 2 nights, how policy is made and sometimes unmade in the Bush administration. The setting is a small government panel that has generally stayed out of the spotlight. The Council on Competitiveness, led by Vice President Quayle. The Council's stated goal to cut unnecessary government red tape so that American businesses can operate efficiently. The question is, in its efforts to eliminate government regulations, is the Quayle Council doing more harm than good? Our agenda reporter, Ned Potter, on the case of the environment.
More pollution will come from America's smokestacks. More species in this marshland may be endangered. More garbage will get burned instead of recycled. All of this, say environmentalists, because of a small task force next door to the White House, Vice President Quayle's Council on Competitiveness.
The Quayle Council has become the nerve center of the Bush administration's all-out attack on environmental policy.
Mr. Quayle's council was created by the White House to solve business complaints about excessive regulation. It was given the power to change regulations written by almost any federal agency.
By relieving the private sector of regulatory burdens, we will create more opportunities, and thus we will create more jobs.
But critics say the council has become the place for big business to go when it wants a law changed. The council, they say, is unaccountable to Congress or the public, and its actions may be illegal.
I think the laws passed by Congress and signed by the President and supported by EPA are now being bypassed by one small group meeting in secret, and that's the Council on Competitiveness headed by the Vice President.
So far, the council has had tremendous influence, especially on the environment. It has killed a plan to increase recycling of municipal waste. It proposed that half the nation's wetlands be open to developers. It delayed aircraft noise control rules. And environmentalists claim it is weakening or delaying 50 parts of the new Clean Air Act, legislation the president himself originally supported. Trimming regulations would be one thing, but critics say doing it in secret is another. Council staffers have boasted to reporters that they leave no fingerprints when they weaken a rule. That means no public meetings, no record of what's been done. But documents provided to ABC News have the council's fingerprints all over them, and they provide a case study of how the council works. Here's the prime example. The Clean Air Law orders factories to cut their pollution to specific levels. It says if they need to exceed those levels for any reason, there must be public notice and a hearing so people who live near the factory can object. After the law passed, business groups lobbied the Environmental Protection Agency to remove the public notice requirement. The EPA refused. It cited the Justice Department's opinion that the law must require prompt notice to the public. But meanwhile, the Council on Competitiveness stepped in, using its power to strike the requirement from the EPA's rules. It also asked the Justice Department to change its mind to see if increased pollution could be permissible without public notice. Finally, Mr. Quayle got President Bush to settle the matter. He decided public notification was not needed. 2 weeks later, the Justice Department, on White House orders, said the change it called unlawful before was now legally permissible. The bottom line is that thousands of factories may cut costs, but could add 490,000 pounds of pollution to the air without warning anyone. Vice President Quayle declined to be interviewed for this story, but environmentalists say he's not the real issue. He is only doing a job President Bush assigned him.
The president pointed to the Clean Air Act as his prime environmental achievement, and yet, on the other hand, he lets loose the forces behind the scenes in his administration to undo the good that he did.
Mr. Bush's critics still remind him of his pledge to be the environmental president. Now they say the Competitiveness Council puts that claim to rest. Ned Potter, ABC News, Washington.
The Quayle Council's reach has been felt in many areas other than the environment, and tomorrow night on the agenda, we'll look at some of those examples. When we come back, the Olympics, Dave's turn at the decathlon.
Know where I am? I'm at one of the finest resorts in the world. I love it because everything is right here. I can relax in the sun, eat marvelous food, enjoy a room with an ocean view. There's fabulous entertainment, friendly service, and it's all included in the price. But what makes this resort really fun is that it takes me to some of the world's other great vacation spots. Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
You should add a wall with a 1-hour resistant rating next to that main assembly line. And now in here, you'll need a listed fire door to the storage rooms.
Okay.
And those additional sprinkler heads in the corners, like we discussed, that should bring down the cost of your insurance. I think this is the right kind of coverage for you.
Great, great.
Now, let's talk about these ceiling tiles.
Oh, yeah.
They have to be flame retardant.
Red Devil enamel. You can always count on its durable finish. Harder than ordinary paints, its beauty lasts and lasts. Red Devil enamel for the finish of a lifetime.
Suddenly, vitamins are all over the news.
And 2 out of 3 adults don't get all that's recommended in their diets.
The good news is, Total has 100% of 10 essential vitamins.
With all the vitamin news, I'm eating Total.
Tonight on Nightline, Bosnia's orphans of war, without homes, without hope, the smallest victims of a besieged country tonight.
At the Olympics, a protest that left bad blood between 2 African nations and catapulted a mostly unknown athlete into the spotlight. for a moment. It began last night in the men's 10,000-meter race. With less than half the race to go, Kenyan Richard Chelimo in all red and Moroccan Khalid Ska were head-to-head, a full lap ahead of the field. With 3 laps to go, they passed another Moroccan, Hamou Boutayeb, and that's when the trouble began. The rule says that a runner being lapped must not interfere with the leaders, but Boutayeb did not back off. Chelimo, the Kenyan, complained to a field judge that Boutayeb was interfering with his stride, so the judge tried to grab Boutayeb as he went by. He missed, and Boutayeb continued to play cat and mouse until the last lap. With 200 meters to go, Boutayeb's countryman Khalid Ska turned on the speed and won by just 1 second. The Kenyans protested. Officials disqualified Khalid Ska and gave the gold medal to Chelimo, so the Moroccans protested. Officials reviewed videotape of the race, and this morning they changed the decision a second time, saying Boutayeb's antics really did not affect the outcome of the race, and Morocco had won again. Well, Khalid Ska's race was about speed and strategy. One event in men's track and field demands those skills along with strength, balance, and enormous endurance. It's the decathlon. What may be the Olympics' toughest challenge is set to begin tomorrow. 2 Americans were planning to fight it out in Barcelona. Only one is there. Dick Schaap has the story.
This summer, they'll battle it out in Barcelona for the title of world's greatest athlete.
It was settled in New Orleans, in the U.S. Olympic trials. Dan O'Brien took a tumble in the pole vault and failed to make the Olympic team. Dave Johnson, the underdog, won the trials, became the favorite to win the Olympic championship in the decathlon, an event a coach first mentioned to him a decade ago.
I go, decathlon, what's that? You know, I was thinking of the marathon. I'm not going to run 26 miles, you know. And he goes, well, you know, Bruce Jenner, he won it in 1976, the 10-event thing. And I go, Bruce Jenner, he's an actor, right? He's a guy on chips.
Dave Johnson knew little about sports when he was a teenager in Montana. He knew a lot about trouble. He used to throw rocks at cars and steal cases of beer.
I could have definitely ended up somewhere else. The penitentiary kind of Olympic Games, probably.
Johnson straightened himself out, turned to religion and to the decathlon.
The Lord's given me a body that's just incredible. I can do anything with it. And to fall short of what he's given me is a major bummer, so I'm giving it all I've got.
At 29, Johnson is obviously confident and handsome, a trait he shares with many of the former decathlon champions who held a reunion in Barcelona today. Is there a rule that decathletes cannot be ugly?
Well, I think it's not just that rule. It's also the one that they have to be super intelligent and have a great sense of humor too, Dick.
I think it's an 11th event for decathletes to be a certain look and to have to deal with that too.
Dave and Dan are still together in their commercials, but since Dan's slip in New Orleans, only Dave now has the chance to share the title, the world's greatest athlete, with the Olympic heptathlon champion, Jackie Joyner-Kersee. Dick Schaap, ABC News, Barcelona.
And that is our report on World News Tonight. I'm Forrest Sawyer. For all of us at ABC News, good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Tuesday, it's an all-star comedy favorite.
I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
From the star of Coach.
What the hell is a grown man drinking grape juice for anyway?
Craig T. Nelson presents his favorite Coach.
Just give me a moment to think.
Following a Roseanne favorite.
I'm trying to tell ya.
Tuesday.
Whoa.
Amazing Blue Star ointment stops itching fast. Jock itch, ringworm, tetter, relieves athlete's foot. Blue Star ointment, the one that's guaranteed. Ask for it.
We're here to study the differences between Robert's dairy cows. Over there's a skim milk cow. She keeps fit by running pasture laps or swimming in the pond. And here's the chocolate milk cow. This species instinctively nibbles on chocolate bars throughout the day to add the right amount of flavor to one of nature's nearly perfect products. Getting the best from each cow makes Robert's milk taste so good. After all, you'd never actually feed the skim milk cow a chocolate bar. That would be counterproductive.
Roberts, how do you make it taste so good? Come on over to Adventureland. You're gonna have a fun day.
Summer's going fast
don't let it end without a day at Adventureland. Shoot the rapids on the raging river, turn upside down on the dragon. See the spectacular show Adventures on Ice. Spend a day of thrills and fun at Adventureland before summer ends. Open daily through August 30th, weekends in September.
Come on over to Adventureland. You're gonna love it at Adventureland.
Partly cloudy this evening with temperatures in the 60s.